All right, so you may have noticed on my stairs, they're not deep enough to use these actual treads. These are perfect for the retrofit stairs for your basements and homes that are built prior to 2020 or 2021. In the last year, Ontario Building Code has updated it. You can check your building code from a 9¼ depth tread to 10 inches for the minimum depth. So that means that these treads are now no longer big enough. What I've done is I've taken other treads and I've ripped them in clean strips so that I can glue them on the back of another tread. That works really well, okay? The key is I need to show you how to cleanly rip these so that they look nice every time. Remember when I told you to make sure you buy enough material? Well, this is gonna be that extra material. We're gonna make a sacrificial stair tread that's gonna become our extra depths on our stairs. So we need one of these or two of these to be ripped into 1¼ inch strips for 13 treads. So let's get started. There's good news to this. You get an extra riser. We're gonna go over to the table saw. We're gonna get ourselves a really fine blade for ripping particle veneer, all right? Don't mess around with a 24 tooth blade. Don't mess around with a 50 tooth blade. Get the fine tooth blades for cutting ply. Now, there's another tip I'm gonna show you right now to make sure every cut is clean. This is a roll of 2A tape. This is my table saw. A little dusty. Get the dust off, okay? It's unplugged right now, so don't worry, the blade's up and ready to go, but there's no power. That being said, clean all this dust off for one reason. To put the 2A tape on so it can hold a thin sacrificial sheet so it keeps a cleaner cut. So I'm gonna get that piece now, set up my depth on my blade, and then I'm gonna show you how I do it. So close examination, first thing, is looking at the stair tread itself. The factory edge on the back end of this thing is pretty clean. Now, you could be a little bit more precise and put it through the table saw for a single pass to make this edge on the tread you're gonna use as a cleaner edge. This one I think is gonna be pretty good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set up my saw to my 1¼ inch width, put my sacrificial sheet through, and then I'm gonna 2A tape it into place. And then I'm gonna begin to sacrifice a tread into multiple strips. So we're gonna set the blade height so that it is through the thickness of the material of my sacrificing sheet and the thickness of the tread. I've got my 1¼ inch depth for my strips, and now all I need to do is push this through the saw to get a score line into it, stop the blade, take it off again, put the tape down so it holds the sheet in place. All right? Hold this in place, don't let go. Okay, remove the sheet. Take your tape. Break the tape. Peel the film. Another piece, this side of the blade. Break the tape. One more. Okay, now peel this, peel that. Take your sheet, drop it down over top of the blade, press it in place. Okay, shouldn't move, should have a good hold. Turn your blade on. Perfect, okay? Holding this piece, let's go to our sacrificing piece. Just like that. That's crisp and clean every single time. Even if your blade's not the most perfect blade, it's gonna make your blade cut that clean. This surface is against the sheet, so it's gonna stop any blowout from ever happening. That's my tip for you. All right, so when it comes down to joinery of these two pieces to make them look good and perfect, we wanna use really nice joinery. Or you could just glue and clamp it. If you don't have the fancy tools at home, I get it. Or if you're like me, you go to a biscuit joiner, or my choice, the Festool Domino. Now, this tool is very precise. I've already set this thing up to do this job in this orientation. It's only a 1/2 inch material, so that means I need a 5mm domino. 5 mils is tiny. These are what I'm gonna use on this material so that you can see it'll end up going inside of it like this. It'll slide in and lock that piece to the tread. So what it does, it acts as a spine so we don't get this happening when we glue it together. It keeps it rigid and stiff. That's the idea behind it, and that's the reason why we use them in lots of different kinds of joinery. So in order to mark this out, we're simply going to line our piece up. Measurements, they can happen, but you can generally just use your eye on this thing. You don't want it too close to the edge, just say 2 to 3 inches in. And I'm going to use tape because writing on this stuff, it's veneer. We don't want to actually have a mark on the wood, because then when you go to sand it off, well, you might sand a little too hard. So I'm doing a spacing of 2 to 3 inches in from the end, and then I'm going to go ahead and do one probably every 6 inches. All right, so making sure our pieces are matched on the ends so they're the exact same, as long as they're close, we can go like this, put a pencil mark up and down. And these pencil marks are what we use to guide our domino to make sure it enters at the same point. And the one thing I like to do when I'm doing multiple pieces, if I want to separate them and make a pile, I put a letter or a code on the end here. So this one I'll just call it A, and this one's A. That way I know it doesn't go this way or that way, and I don't flip it upside down. Surface is up, it's obvious. So now, it's time to domino. Safety first. Just a quick tip. So when you're using the domino, it has a line in the middle to give you the sign so you know exactly where your center is. So you're gonna put that line on the pencil line. So that way every time we line it up, we go across, and we go across, okay? The idea behind the domino is as it comes in, it's gonna rabbit out an oval hole, so that way your little domino will drop in and hold it just snug. Now, just like that, we've got our pieces set up and we're ready to roll. So it might be a little easier to get this thing in place. If you want to try and clamp it, you can. That way you can hold it upright. We're gonna take our dominoes, set them down, and get ready to glue. Glob in the hole, smear across the top. We're not going heavy on the glue again because we don't want to have too much squeeze out. The idea here is just to get a bond on the surface, and then the dominoes are there to stiffen it so it doesn't roll. So I do a little thumb smear. Same thing is going to happen on this piece now. Take your dominoes, stick it in the smaller of the two pieces. It's much easier to handle. You can just see how snug these are when they go in. There's no movement whatsoever. I have a setting on there that allows the domino hole to go wider, so it gives you more play in case you're off on your lines just by a bit. That gives us room for tolerance of error. All right, let's pop it in. Now come and look at the front of that and check out how tight that joint is. And all we're gonna do is tap that so these ends are the same. So I'll go get a little tapping mallet and then we'll just bump it over. You're gonna set this into a couple of clamps. I peel the tape off now because I don't like leaving tape on veneers for too long. Sometimes, even though they're friendly, safe painter's tape, you can actually have the adhesive leave a mark in your veneer. So the cool part about the dominoes, or even the biscuits might be pretty strong, but like, look at this. You cannot wiggle that. Look at on the side here, watch. See how strong that spine is now? You can guarantee that that joint's not gonna wanna break on you. So all we're gonna do is clamp these down. You can do one of two things. You can trust that your clamps aren't gonna ruin the wood by squeezing, or you can put some soft pieces of wood in between or some kind of foam so that way it doesn't crush into your wood. I've already done this and I've tested it. These don't wreck anything on the wood. Here comes our squeeze out. Make sure we take special care of anything that comes out of the wood to make sure it looks good. Get that rag. It looks like I should put a clamp in the middle here because I can see the grains rising. So it's just like that. Pretty much nice clean rip. Use that tip to get a clean line every time. Domino if you got one, biscuit if you don't, dowel, quick fix in a pinch. Those aren't very expensive. And you could basically get that joinery to make it just as clean. Remember, it doesn't have to be super strong. It's just got to be strong until you get it installed. And you don't want it to break on the install because that's not fun.